podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, a leading international professional body which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide. I'm your host, Julie Flower, and in this new series, I'm delighted to explore innovative ways in which coaching is being used for social good. Each week, we'll take a detailed look at a different scheme, seeking to make meaningful impact in a specific field of lived experience. We aim to inspire you with powerful coach and client perspectives, speaking directly to those involved, and to challenge all of our assumptions about what coaching is and who it's for. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Coaching for Good. Today, we're going to be talking about coaching within the criminal justice system. And so I'm delighted to be joined by Jeffrey Wotherspoon, who is a coach with a charity called Spark Inside, and also by Elliot, a client of one of the coaching programs. Welcome, both of you. Hi.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Happy to be on.
Oh, really delighted to have you both. Thanks for taking the time. I'll just hand over to each of you just to say a few words about yourself. So, Jeffrey, hi.
Hi, Julie. Again, thank you for having us on. Briefly, I'm a coach. I do some exec coaching, which is essentially supporting senior leaders with organizational challenges, some leadership coaching, which really centers around 360 reports. And then why I'm here today, some life coaching, which is with young men in prisons in London and the southeast of England between the ages of 15 to 30. And I do that, as you said, through a charity called Spark Inside. When I'm not coaching, I'm a trainer and facilitator. That's me professionally. Personally, I'm a father of two wonderful girls and been married 7 years.
Thank you. Thanks very much for sharing that, Jeffrey. Welcome. Great to have you here. And Elliot, lovely to see you here as well today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm a student from one of the coaches from Jeffrey. I've grown up from one household of my mother, and I've got a sister as well. She basically took us to school, tried to make sure that me and my sister were the best that she could bring up, and I eventually ended up I got 5 GCSEs, but unfortunately I ended up in prison, and I came out of prison, and then I ended up going back again, unfortunately, and then I ended up meeting Jeffrey on my last prison sentence, where he invited me to the project that he's doing, and we got to know each other quite well, and I ended up getting released from prison. And then from me getting released, I managed to get a job as an office manager, and here we are today. Now I'm just in a podcast with you lot.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Elliot. Oh, it's wonderful to have both of you here. And I think what will really make this conversation so rich is your different perspectives on these programs. So thanks both for joining us today. Jeffrey, could you tell us a little bit more about working with Elliot?
One of the things about Elliot is he was working in the kitchens at the time, and people really respected him on his skills, and he was disciplined. As he said, it was his 3rd time in prison. However, there's a lot to do in prison if you want to. What I mean is sort of not positive stuff. But Elliot was known for going to work, going to the gym, and keeping his head down. You could see that he's someone who wanted change, but perhaps just needed the support to actually make that change happen. He just needed to see himself differently and understand his own ability more. But I would say he was ready for change, and therefore I'm really happy that he came. Expressing himself was a challenge, and I saw that get better as the workshops went on. Workshop 1 to workshop 4, there was a shift in Elliot there, and that was again the trust he was building with the group and with us. So I just really want to commend him. And our first coaching session in prison, Elliot shared his career aspirations and also that he would want to do some bookkeeping, and we began to talk about that. And then he came out of prison, and true to his word, he went to college to do a bookkeeping course and passed the first couple of levels. And that's when I knew he was really serious about what he wanted to do. And then we took the coaching further to explore his career aspirations, and all of that is what has landed him the job as an office manager, where you do some bookkeeping as well, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe I'll ask Jeffrey whether you could just give us a bit of an overview of the work of Spark Inside, and also particularly the Hero's Journey and Black Hero's Journey programs, the coaching programs that I understand you've been involved in delivering.
Yeah, so Spark Inside was first founded in 2012 for the purpose of using the valuable skill of coaching within prisons. We've primarily been based in London and the Southeast, and we have grown slightly. We're doing some work in the Midlands and spreading our wings, but the base of our work is London South East. The Hero's Journey is our flagship program, and the Black Hero's Journey is a spin-off from that program, and I'll give some context as to why. And then since then, there's a range of other programs that they've begun to do, such as The Conversation, which essentially involves bringing officers and the inmates on the wing. So it's really a big cohort of people together to have a conversation, but there's a series of sessions that happen to essentially make the wing a better place to live and work, as of course the inmates live there and then the officers work there. And they also do other things such as coaching prison officers as well. I think that really started from COVID. So we coach prison officers at different grades and senior officers as well. And because I do some of the exec coaching, I've worked with several deputy managers of prisons. So Spark Inside is really making their waves within the criminal justice system. And it's really good to work with a system in that way because, yes, we work frontline with the young people, but then we also work with the people on the wing, i.e. officers, and the people behind the scenes, the decision makers, governors and head of functions, etc. With the Hero's Journey specifically, the Hero's Journey isn't unique to Spark Inside. That's designed by a guy called Joseph Campbell. And I really invite people to look into Joseph Campbell and what he does with the Hero's Journey. But essentially, we have got permission to use it. And the way we use the Hero's Journey is to articulate change. So, of course, change happens in the world. Some change we choose, some change happens to us. And what we found with the young people we work with in prison is they're not necessarily sure how to navigate that change. So we use the Hero's Journey as a template to get them to think about their life and events that happen in life and how they go through that Hero's Journey cycle. And the idea is they are the hero in their own journey. So they learn what is necessary to be able to navigate the different stages of the cycle they go through. The Hero's Journey is 3 workshops. And then after that, the young people get coaching and it's totally voluntary. They get coaching in prison and through the gates, which means when they come out of prison. The Black Hero's Journey initially began in 2018, having run for 5-6 years. A common theme that was coming out, and particularly London, for anyone that doesn't know the London context, is overrepresented of young Black people, as in they make up a huge part of the population within prisons. And they began to constantly say they wanted a program where it could really talk about issues that affects them and their community. So the Black Hero's Journey started, which is for all young men who identify as Black, so they can be mixed race as well. And it only uses Black coaches as well. And at the moment, it's only using Black male coaches. So it's got that man-to-man element and the Black element. And I guess that's the shared experience. And that's 4 sessions. It uses the template of the regular Hero's Journey. Some of the exercises have changed to make it specific, and we've added other elements in. So again, we're still talking about navigating change, but then some of the other elements, we touch more on identity and getting them to think about how aspects of their identity have impacted their life and the decisions they've made. And for this particular cohort of people, overwhelmingly, we're talking the high 90s, 98% of them see their Black identity as a direct result of the situations and circumstances and the decisions they've made in life. So hopefully that's a good overview of Spark Inside, the Hero's Journey and the Black Hero's Journey.
Yeah, wonderful overview. Goodness, I think we could probably speak for 3 hours. There's so many different aspects of that. Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm really keen to bring Elliot in here, and I understand that you took part in the Black Hero's Journey programme. And so I'm interested, Elliot, what first interested you in getting involved?
Basically, I just wanted to know what it was really about, because obviously the Black Hero's Journey, and when you're in prison, sometimes you just feel that you're stuck inside and you basically ain't really got no one to speak to. And obviously as a Black person, I feel like we do go through a lot of problems, a lot of things in our life, and it's just like sometimes when you're in custody, it's hard to maybe get your word across to people. It's hard for people to actually listen to you. So it's like when this workshop came across, it's like I felt that it might benefit me for when I get out, because sometimes when you do get out of prison, it's very hard for you to literally get help out there. And if there's people that are willing to help you, I thought that it might benefit me into changing my life.
Thanks, Elliot. And I suppose thinking about that, Jeffrey, in terms of actually finding clients for the programme, maybe thinking about the Black Hero's Journey programme specifically at the moment.
Yeah.
You said that it was voluntary. How did you go about finding clients and ensuring that people like Elliot were aware and might be interested in taking part?
Yeah, so Spark Inside have service delivery managers who really manage the delivery, the Hero's Journey, Black Hero's Journey, and they go out and they recruit young people. So the criteria is they do have to be between the ages of, in an adult estate, they'll be 18 to 30. They have to meet that. And ideally 6 months left of their sentence, because as I say, we work with them when they're released as well, if they want us to. Perhaps they've got 5 years left, they may not necessarily qualify for a particular program, or depending how many programs we're running, we may allow them because we really don't want to turn people away. But in terms of who we really target, it's what I've described. Do they meet the age bracket? Are they going to be released within the 6 months? That's our criteria. Their criteria is, are you interested? Do you want to do it? And that's what I mean by it's voluntary. There are no real in-prison incentives for them doing it. So that's partly positive because it really shows the motivation of those who join. And of course, they make the decision, and the word of mouth really is our best recruiter. For example, we get the first cohort come, they really enjoy it, then they go back on the wing, they spread the word. And what we find is the service delivery managers then are approached and people are saying, please put me on the program, because they want to have that same experience. And then, the workshops more or less recruit themselves.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That ripple effect, isn't it? Once you've got that word out there. So thinking about your experience of the workshops, Elliot, and also your experience of the coaching, can you tell us a little bit about how you found it?
To be honest, I found that it was quite helpful for me because whilst I was in the workshops, the coaches there managed to basically teach us how to maybe think different, see scenarios, different scenarios, and just to be able to act different. Also, I realized that whilst I was in the workshop, I was able to find out so much different things about myself that I actually didn't know. It could maybe help for me for when I get outside of prison, because this time that I came to custody, it wasn't my first time in custody, it was my third time in custody. And I realized that somewhere I needed to make a change. And it's like, I didn't want to keep getting put into the same cycle. So me joining this project, it enabled me to just come out and basically just do things different.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear, Elliot. And it sounds, as you say, just that realization, that self-awareness.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what has the impact been on you of taking part in this program?
I think the impact is basically impacting me very well. The reason why I say that is because doing this project, I was able to find out my real true potential about myself, because usually it's like certain things I would think that I'll be able to do, but sometimes it's like I don't always get pushed or I don't always get the help. So for me joining this project, I was able to find out so much different things and realize that I'm basically, if I really wanted to achieve something, I can literally achieve it. And for example, it's like I've come out of custody and obviously I've continued to work with Jeffrey, and he's enabled me to push myself to get to somewhere that I really wanted to get to. So it's like, I just say to people that the workshop did literally help me to get to where I wanted to be. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's really wonderful to hear, Elliot. And it sounds like you're a real advocate for the programme, which is great.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey, Elliot's talked about some of those aspects around motivation. You both mentioned identity, around realising potential and making change. And of course, there are many different ways that you can do that from a coaching point of view. Maybe this is a bit of a coachy question. And obviously, you've mentioned you're an executive coach and a life coach, and that Hero's Journey has a certain kind of structure to it. But I just wondered, what aspects in your coaching tool belt, if you like, do you find most helpful when you're coaching on the Hero's Journey and the Black Hero's Journey programs?
I feel like I should share some more context just to maybe bridge any gaps. So Spark Inside hire coaches, and the workshops are really facilitation. And of course, the coaching skills support our facilitation. So the workshops, meaning there are 8 young people who participate. So it's Elliot and 7 others. And we very much use our coaching skills to facilitate. So we bring a stimulus, if you like, and we facilitate conversations around that. So we really challenge their thinking. All the things we would do in coaching, we inquire, we challenge, we raise their awareness, we get them to hear from others as peers. So the learning is self-directed from a peer perspective, and that's hugely valuable. In terms of some of the aspects we cover, we look at beliefs, we look at identity, we look at values, we look at their own stories and prompts in their own journeys. And again, it's raising their awareness as to situations that occurred around them and where their agency was. When you understand the hero's journey template, you can apply it to anything in life, any change. And what I mean by any change is a new job, a new partner, a marriage, a baby, going to prison, going to school. So it's applicable in all of those scenarios and situations. And the young people are really able to see their lives outside of them. We use laminated sheets to represent the stages. So they are being coached and facilitated, and they're almost seeing their lives from an observer perspective rather than an actor perspective, which raises their awareness. Plus they hear from each other. So that's really the power of the workshops. And then, of course, the coaching then is coaching, which all the ACE community will be aware of, just using the general coaching tools, which again is self-directed. So back to your question about tool belt, some of the principles I use in coaching is you meet the client where they're at. I obviously know I'm going into a prison, and many of the people would have visited there multiple times. I also understand that the way this cohort of people may think and perceive things will be different from maybe the typical people in the community. So all of these things are meeting the client where they're at, as opposed to where I expect them to be. Of course, there's the no judgment. There's empathy, which is essentially understanding. I may not agree with some things, but I understand it. And then it's just the inquiry, the questions, the curiosity, and then it's the belief in them. I guess a coaching philosophy is the client or the coachee has all the tools within them already. Our job is to facilitate that and to bring it out. And this is what Elliot's saying in terms of he was able to gain that awareness as to some of the skills he does have and really begin to see himself in a different light. And for me, that's the power of the workshops, because unless you understand the lifestyle of the young men in prisons, you probably wouldn't be able to understand. But a big part of why you even get repeat offenders is because of how they see themselves. And anecdotally, many of them see themselves as offenders, as criminals, as this is their life. So of course, they live as they see. But when they begin to perceive themselves differently, they can live differently. If you don't see yourself as a criminal, you won't commit crime. And if you see that you are able to do differently, you will do differently. And this is irrespective of their upbringing, of the negative environment around them, of all the challenges they face. It's really getting them to see who they really are and also who they want to be, which is outside of their narrative or norm. Again, this isn't necessarily Elliot's story because he does, as he say, has a mum. I believe his dad's back in his life now, wasn't at the time. But Elliot has loving and positive people around him, which is a good protective factor. For a huge majority of the young men I've worked with, I am the one positive person in their life, just me. So you can imagine how difficult it is to go back into the community or society where either people want you to go back to doing what you were doing, sometimes including people's parents, or they actually have nobody at all. They're sort of isolated.
Thank you. And as I listen to you, there's so much here around this kind of, as you say, shift in perception of your own identity and gaining that different perspective. And I'm also struck by the use of the peer environment as well as the one-to-one. And that's something that's come out in a number of the schemes and programs that we've been looking at for this series. I think there's that real power in both. Jeffrey, thinking about the programs overall, Hero's Journey and Black Hero's Journey, I know what the charity landscape's like. Obviously, funding is often a challenge and demonstrating impact. So I'm just wondering what evaluation has been done on the programs and what wider impacts you found.
Yes, I will only be able to give a basic answer to this because I'm external and they have this evaluation and impacts team / manager. But one thing I do know is all of the programs are evaluated, particularly the Black Hero's Journey, as it's a new project. It has some specific funding. So again, the evaluation's heavy on that. And the evaluation's always independent as well. And in terms of outcomes, and this is where, I won't be able to give the stats, but if you compare Spark Inside stats to the general stats of prison population and programs, I think the difference is quite significant in terms of our recidivism rate and engagement rate and just impact. In terms of all the metrics, I believe Spark Inside is outstanding. I won't necessarily be able to give you those figures, but anyone who's interested, go on the Spark Inside website because I believe they publish all of the reports and evaluations there. And actually, towards the end of last year, probably 3 months, maybe even 2 months ago, they published the evaluation for the Black Heroes journey as well. Or there's a full report. So there's a shorter one that anyone wants to get an idea. And then I believe there's a full 70-page report. And you have anecdotes, and it just really shows the cycle of it or the journey of it. So yeah, whoever's interested, please have a look.
Yeah, thank you. Because I think this question of evidence in coaching comes up more. And I think as a profession, it's really important we can evidence what we do. And obviously, to enable these sorts of schemes to continue, it's fantastic that you can evidence that. But obviously, the most powerful thing is hearing from individuals. And so I wanted to bring you back in here, Elliot. We've talked a lot about some of the real positive impacts of taking part in this, but I know it's quite a commitment to get involved with coaching. And I just wondered, what is the biggest challenge that you faced in taking part in the programme?
I would feel the biggest challenge for me was basically being able to just express myself and just being able to talk to someone and explain what I literally go through. Because what I realised as young people in prison, sometimes they don't always want to speak to people. They don't always want to tell their past. They don't always want to have someone to conversate with. So for me, I felt like me speaking to someone that obviously I've only just known from being in prison was a bit hard for me. But as the program was carried on, I felt that it got a bit more easier because obviously there was a lot of people, like Jeffrey said, it wasn't just me that was in the program. There was a few of us and everyone was able to relate to certain things that we've all been through. So for me, I felt like it became a bit more easier, and yeah, having coaches like Jeffrey just made things so much easier for me.
Thank you. And it becomes easier as you go along. So Jeffrey, thinking about some of the wider considerations of these sorts of programs, I wondered what are some of the things that you needed to consider either from an ethical perspective or a coach training perspective to ensure that these programs were delivered as well as they possibly could be?
That's a really interesting question. And I've been with Spark Inside since their inception, more or less, so from the beginning. And as a result, I've taken up different roles than outside of the coaching. I've supported a lot, such as recruitment of new coaches, training, etc. And this is something that we've really looked into because over the years, Spark Inside has recruited brilliant coaches. How do I know? Because they're assessed and they do amazing coaching sessions, but some of them have never facilitated ever, or they haven't been able to transfer the skills in an appropriate way. So you've got a group and perhaps they may be really focused on coaching rather than broadening out and thinking about the group dynamics rather than the individual. So Spark Inside over the past few years has been very intentional about making sure, yes, they hire certified coaches and coaches who have experience, but also have that facilitation skill. And they do ideally seek coaches with youth work background. And that's to understand the audience you're working with. That's really as far as it goes. Some coaches may not have that experience, but they may be just great in people dynamics, which is a skill in and of itself. You know, if coaches are exec coaches, for example, who are used to that environment, perhaps worked in industry, they may struggle to be around a different cohort of people. And that can be a barrier as well. But some coaches may have that experience, but just be really attuned and curious. So you've got the facilitation skills, you've got the ability to understand the audience that you're working with. I guess it takes courage to walk into a prison environment and coach. So you need that as well. And then it's general personal skills, resilience. It's challenging to work in a prison, but oftentimes not for the reasons people think. It's not so much the young people we work with, but the system itself. Under-resourced, stretched. And what that essentially means is you may not even get the people in the room that you want to work with. The lack of resource sometimes means things aren't done well. Of course, names need to be put on a list. All these things need to be done in advance. It's really difficult to just move one prisoner from one place to the next. So that advanced work isn't always done. if there's an incident, it might slow things down or block things from happening. A lot of the challenges are systemic, and then they won't actually be specific to Spark Inside because everyone will feel it. But again, that's a challenge. And then the other thing to consider is it is a prison environment. We are working with young men. The London context does have a lot of gangs, etc. So all of these things need to be considered. You cannot just pick men and bring them together. Some of them will know each other. Some of them will have serious problems. Some of them, it will be through associations. So the workshops are really risk assessed. And again, this is oftentimes a challenge for the young men that come in who know that actually in this prison, I'm literally only safe in this ring. And if you're going to put me in a room with people in other wings, that could potentially be a problem. So all of those things need to be assessed. And we've got service delivery managers who do that well. And they obviously partner with the prison to do that and understand the risk. And then in terms of ethical, confidentiality and all of those things exist. The prison system is such that you do need to abide by those rules and regulations. As coaches, we hold ourselves to those standards. So that's part and parcel of it. If there's safeguarding needs, etc., will be reported. And yeah, so those things there.
Yeah, thank you. And as you say, some things to consider that probably the majority of jobbing coaches wouldn't need to consider within their working lives, but very relevant to these programs. Thank you. I'm going to come to you both. Coaching is about learning and sometimes about stepping back and reflecting. So I was going to ask each of you in turn what your biggest learning is, having been involved both as client and coach with these programs. Yeah, Elliot.
Yeah, for me, I would just say just knowing my true potential, just knowing who I really actually am and just knowing how far I can really go. Because obviously since I've ended up getting into this prison system, it's like I felt like I've always just been in one little bubble, and it's like sometimes I find it difficult to actually get out of that bubble. But having joined this course, I've realized that it enabled me to actually start to think different, see things different, and react different. So this has actually really helped me because there's certain things in my life that I would want to do, but sometimes I've always felt like I'm not too sure if I can actually really do it. But being on this course has actually helped me to be able to think that and just really get to my true potential. So literally push me to somewhere that I actually really wanted to be. So it's just like, I feel like, yeah, this course has just literally helped me to get to my true potential.
I can sense that coming through, Elliot. So thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. And Jeffrey, how about for you? What's your learning been?
Yeah, I just want to say I loved hearing that, Elliot.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Obviously, having walked with you on this journey, I can see it as you articulate it. I can see it. So that's amazing to hear. And I learn so much from the work I do in prison. And I guess for me, the biggest learning is everyone's human, and empathy, i.e. really understanding and not judging people, can make a huge difference. Accepting people where they are. And one of the things about coaching is ideally the coach will be detached from the outcome. So it can be genuinely for the benefit of the other person. And I feel as though when we go in, we're really offering our skills in a way that enables people to see things differently and do things differently if they want to. And just giving people that space with no agenda, I think is very powerful. You may have probation officers who are helping, but they're a statutory service. There are targets, there are consequences for people not following through, etc. But with us, it being a voluntary service, we are here to help if you want it. And I don't really feel as though the young people in prison have that opportunity or get that space. So it really becomes centered on them rather than centered on results. And sometimes that can be the problem of evaluations. I obviously understand why evaluations occur, but when you have to do it and drive and show outcomes, the person can be lost in that. And I think one of the things we're able to do is keep the person center of the work we do. And I think that's why it's so successful. And I think that's why the clients feel it.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And again, that's something I've noticed coming out through these conversations as part of this series, actually taking a very person-centered approach, which is what we should do in coaching, right? But as you say, for a number of reasons, that may not always come through within the system or within measurement. So yeah, very powerful to hear the learning from both of you. Thank you for sharing that. So in typical coaching fashion, I'm thinking about the way forward, what's next, as it were. And I'm wondering, Jeffrey, from a Spark Inside perspective, but also from a coaching young people in prisons perspective, what's next?
So from a Spark Inside perspective, one of the things Spark Inside senior leadership, particularly the chief exec, Vicky, wants to do is grow well rather than grow fast. So their focus is not so much expanding to every prison, for example. For them, it's quality over quantity, and I really respect that. There's lots of focus on training and honing and making services better. And then there's innovation. So as I say, the conversation is still in pilot phase. The Black Heroes journey was in pilot phase for a while, again, to make sure that when it rolls out, it's what it should be, and it is now. And the prison officer offering, that's grown in terms of the prison officers they're reaching. Now I feel as though the criteria is quite broad, whereas before it was a bit of a finer criteria, but that's something that they've made an investment in because they see the impact. So that's happening, plus their expansion, as I say, into the Midlands and prisons there. So I think that's what's really next from a Spark Inside perspective. From a coach's perspective, we just recruited 11 new coaches who are excellent. And again, that I think goes to show the work and the potential that's on the cards. So I know that they really want to reach more young people within the establishments they're already in.
Thank you. And Elliot, what would you say to other young people who might be offered the chance to take part in a programme like Heroes Journey?
Grab it. Don't miss out. This is a great opportunity for people that literally want to change and just do things different with their lives. I think, if all the people that literally in prisons that don't get an opportunity to speak to people, and if they feel like they're having problems or they need to speak to someone, I feel like this is a great opportunity for young adults to literally grab onto and maybe get further in life or just do something different in their life. So I'd say, it's a great opportunity for people to literally take.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, Jeffrey, what can coaches and the wider coaching community take from hearing about these programs?
Coaching can work everywhere. I don't think it's so much about the tools or the particular techniques that move a client from A to B, but rather just being with a client, being that human, and coming back to some of the first basic principles, i.e. no judgment, curiosity, active listening, and essentially seeing the best in. And I think that's what makes the biggest change. That's what I do with the young people in prison. That's what I do with the corporate execs that I work with. And the result is always the same. People value that attention and time given to them because most people have to pay for it. And communication transcends just words. Our body language, our tone, our way of being communicate a lot more loudly than the words we say. And therefore, it's not so much about the skill of coaching, i.e. what we do, but how we do it.
Yeah, the being rather than the doing of coaching. And it's sometimes easier to say than to do or to be, isn't it? I think it's great to be reminded of that. And I'm wondering, Jeffrey, if there are coaches listening to this podcast who think, goodness, I've only ever worked maybe in the leadership space or a space that is completely unlike prisons potentially, but they're interested in maybe learning more about these sorts of programs or even starting to get involved. What would be your advice to them?
I think if you're interested in Spark Inside, please follow them on their several social media outlets. LinkedIn may be one of the best. And you'll be able to find out events that they're doing, which sometimes they open up and you can come down to one of the events, hear testimonies and stories and meet people like Elliot, or just generally meet the coaches, have that conversation, meet the HQ staff who are really happy and open to talk about the work. And also if people are interested in working for Spark Inside or working within prisons, LinkedIn will tell them when job adverts go out, then they can apply.
Good old LinkedIn, the coach's best friend. That's really helpful because I think sometimes moving into a new coaching area can perhaps seem quite overwhelming, can't it? But again, just having that opportunity perhaps to, as you say, meet people like you, Elliot, meet people like you, Jeffrey, and hear more about what this could involve could really help to open the space of possibility, I think, for those who are coaching. I'm just wondering from either of you, is there anything that you feel you would like to add to the conversation that you haven't yet been given the opportunity to say?
Yeah, I just think that, this Black Heroes project was a great help for me. And like I just said before, that anyone that wants to go further in their life, that wants to unlock certain features that they may not know about themselves, I would say this is a great opportunity for them to take upon and do things different. So yeah, I would say it has been a good help for me. And yeah, I'm pleased that Jeffrey was able to coach me and just to get me to where I am right now.
It's really powerful to hear you say that, Elliot. And of course, you are an office manager now and you're at work. So thank you for joining us from there. It's great to know that you're using those skills.
Yeah. Whilst I was in prison, it was just like, I felt that I've always been good at maths, and I just thought that was one of the careers that I literally wanted to go down. But sometimes when you're in prison, it's just like you're just stuck and you just don't know if you're going to get the help. You don't know if you're going to be able to actually do it. So it's just once I joined that workshop and I was able to meet with Jeffrey, everything just clicked and it just made sense. So it was just enabled me to literally get out, think different, and then just go for what I wanted to go for. So I thank Jeffrey for that.
It sounds like you've really gone for what you wanted to go for. And
yeah.
It's wonderful to have you both on to share both sides of this story, if you like. And so, Elliot, what's next for you?
Because I'm still getting experience from bookkeeping, I would probably like to carry on getting the experience from bookkeeping. And yeah, hopefully, maybe one day I can obviously level up in my bookkeeping skills, and then hopefully I can maybe just do it basically where I do it as where people come to me for bookkeeping, where I'm not working for someone else. That's one of my objectives along the lines. And also, whilst I was in prison, I was in the bakery, so I was actually doing quite a lot of baking products and cooking products, and that's one thing that I actually enjoy doing. So hopefully in a couple of years' time, I can maybe open up my own business in the food industry. So that's another thing that I'm maybe looking to go down the lines, but we just have to just see how things go.
Oh, it sounds fantastic, Elliot. And it sounds like you might have a brilliant combination of the practical baking and the finance skills.
Finance side, yeah.
I wish you all the best with that future career. And from our conversation, I've no doubt that you will be working towards making that happen. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today, Elliot and Jeffrey. It's just been fascinating to hear about the coaching work within the criminal justice system. And thank you for sharing it with our listeners. I wish you both well in the future. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. For over 20 years, our purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organisations, and society. To find out more about the AC and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or visit our webpage at associationforcoaching.com. Explore our digital learning hub and enjoy our extensive library of on-demand webinars, member benefits, interviews, podcasts, and a portfolio of live events featuring thought leadership, tools, models, and the latest industry trends to help you develop your coaching expertise.